Well, hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Hatch Toyota Friday Night Football Show. We've got a great start underway for you here as we broadcast live to tape here at Hatch Toyota, the dealership behind us, and football in front of us as we get ready for another football season. 2024 is right around the corner, and we're getting rolling here on the Hatch Toyota Friday Night Football Show. I'm Floyd Simmons. Derek Simmons right down there on the other end. Sandwiched in between is Snowflake's head coach, Kay Solomon. But before we get into that, if you can see behind us, I don't know how well you can see, but there's a whole stack here of Yeti coolers. And these are called Yeti Tundra 45s. And what it is, if you buy a new Tundra from Hatch Toyota, you get one of those to go with it. One of those, I guess it's 45 quart Yeti, something like that. It's beautiful. It's branded for Hatch Toyota, by the way. You're going to love that great insignia on it. And all you got to do is buy a new Tundra from Hatch Toyota, and you get one of those things. From what I understand, they've given away about 45 of them so far. 40. So why not join the club? Why not join the club? Get yourself a great Yeti cooler, only here from Hatch Toyota. Our presenting sponsors of the Friday Night Football Show. We thank them and all of our great sponsoring partners that are helping us to kick off another great season of high school football in Northeast Arizona. Our first broadcast is Friday night, Blue Ridge at Monument Valley. Blue Ridge at Monument Valley. Then next Friday night, we'll be at Cholo High School on August 30th. They will host the Push Ridge Lions. And before you know it, the Snowflake Lobos are going to be at Cholo High School, and we'll have broadcast coverage of that coming up for you right here at the Sports Zone, exclusive coverage of the best high school football in not just the White Mountains region, I dare say in the entire state of Arizona. So do welcome you in, everybody. I'm Floyd Simmons, and this is the head coach, Kay Solomon of the Snowflake Lobos. Coach Solomon, welcome to the Friday Night Football Show.
Thank you, Floyd. Derek, it's good to join you guys. Happy to be here.
Well, it's a thrill to welcome you in and get ready for another season of Snowflake Lobos football. You're the head coach. I believe the all-time winningest head coach at Snowflake High School. I don't know if you've ever looked in the archives, the records to see.
Probably just because I've been around the longest.
You've been around the longest.
Too stubborn to leave, and nobody's kicked me out yet.
Well, I'll say this, Coach. I don't think that they could pick a better guy to head this program. And I don't just say that because you and I played football against each other, and you showed me no mercy when you did play against me and the Holbrook Roadrunners way back in the day. And I say that because of things like our previous discussion we had earlier with Eric Halmerson, the new head coach of the Blue Ridge Yellow Jackets. Very familiar with you and your program. He's coached against you.
Yes.
Played against your Lobos back in the day when he was a Yellow Jacket. And one of the things that he commented in our discussion with him earlier about Snowflake and the success your team has been having lately is the consistency and the tenure, if you will, of the coaches in your staff. You in particular as the head coach, but you now have a group of coaches that have been there for a long time. You guys have ironed out all the wrinkles that may have existed in the early days of your time there, and it's produced multiple state championships. Tremendous success. So, Coach, congratulations on all that you've done.
You make it sound like it's a machine that just operates smoothly.
I believe it is.
There's new wrinkles every year and every season to kind of overtake and overcome. But you're absolutely right. We have a great coaching staff. Coach Reddick, Coach Jeremy Smith running the offense and defense at the varsity level. Spencer Rickardson's been our offensive line coach for quite a few years now. Does a great job with those guys up front, and just lots of other coaches in there supporting coaching positions, and a solid group of guys whose number one priority is to help every kid and our programs be successful, and so that's why we're being successful.
Yeah, Coach, I know that you had higher aspirations for your team than what it finished last year. You got to the playoffs, did bow out in a close game, a game you almost were able to come back and snatch from Micah Mountain in that playoff matchup. They went on to the semifinals. So that was a very good football team, and if the close game you played against them is any indication, your team could have made a return to a state championship last year. It was a good club you had.
We had a good football team last year. When you hear it was a first round playoff exit, that sounds not very successful, not very Snowflake Lobo football like, but when you consider that Micah Mountain team, the only two games they lost were to the eventual champion Canyon del Oro. And so they were a very good football team, extremely talented. And our kids we've given them lots of props. That team last year, they played a great football game that night, and we actually did enough to get the game tied at the end, but got a late touchdown called back on a penalty, and that was our last opportunity. So a bunch of kids that just battled right to the end, though, and proud of them and their accomplishments, and looking forward to seeing we get a lot of those kids back this year. This year we're a senior heavy team and bring back quite a few that had experience with us last year. So we're excited to see where they pick up from what we learned last year.
We're going to dive in after a while to more of the specifics of your team and some of the guys that comprise what should be another great Lobo team here. But let's continue talking in a general sense, a broad sense about the program, Coach. And I want to ask you about competing at the 4A level. You didn't want to move up. Nobody really wants to have to move up the next level. You saw the great success with a couple of championships in your last years at the 3A level, and that's why you were rewarded with the opportunity to play at a higher level in that competition. And you know what? Even though you didn't want to do it, even though the community maybe felt like it was unfair, it is what the AIA has established, and the Lobos did not back down from the get-go, and in fact made a return to a championship game at the 4A level. So the success continues. Your team is competing very well at that level. Obviously, you're very accustomed to now that competition.
Yeah, it's been a learning curve at the 4A level. A lot of things are similar to 3A. There's a lot of middle of the road programs at the 4A level, kind of like any conference. But then when you get to those top levels, it's extremely competitive, and we embraced it from the start. When we got moved up to 4A, this will be our third year competing at that 4A level. And we've tried to embrace it, continue to embrace it. And other than the long bus trips, a little bit longer, all our region games, our away games are down in the valley. But there's two things. We miss the rivalries locally. We've been able to maintain. Obviously, we've played Show Low the past couple of years, and but other than that, the Blue Ridges, the Round Valleys, and these local rivalries we don't have anymore. But hopefully, we can renew those at some point in time. And in the meantime, we're going to do our best to get out there and win region championships and compete for state championships at the 4A level.
I can't imagine a scenario that sees the Snowflake Lobos return to 3A. You talk about maybe the rivalries. Maybe you can, somewhere along the line, pick up a game with Blue Ridge from time to time, pick up a game with Round Valley. Those last 2-3 seasons of playing Round Valley were epic struggles between the two teams. And in fact, in one of your state championship years, Round Valley got a great win over Snowflake at their place. And so, to have those back would be nice, but can you foresee any way that Snowflake ever in the future returns to 3A level competition?
I don't know. There's a lot of factors at work. The biggest one being the point that they, when they started moving teams up and down, that was to try and counteract some of the juggernauts in the valley that were just becoming football magnet schools and recruiting, and maybe not recruiting, but at least drawing in some of the very best players. But since then, they've also instituted the open division where they're taking those top 8 teams and doing a separate playoff for them. And so my opinion right now is the need for this promotion relegation system that we've been moved to 4A under it's not there anymore. We should just go back to where we are. But the other factor that's at work with us in Snowflake, we started our school year with an enrollment of a little north of 950 students this year, which 1,000 is the cutoff to be at 4A school for every sport. So we've grown consistently, and if a couple more years down the road, if we keep growing the way that we are, we might be all playing 4A sports, not just football.
Head coach Kay Solomon of the Snowflake Lobos is with us, everybody. The Hatch Toyota Friday night football show begins another season. 2024 is embarking. You get your first game next week. We'll talk about that in a bit, Coach. You got a new playing surface over at Snowflake High School?
Getting a new playing surface. It's coming down to the wire for that first home game. But we had about a month cushion on it. But you know how those things go with construction projects. But beautiful surface, and it's going to be a great addition for us and our soccer programs.
Well, if the field isn't ready for your first home game, what do you do?
Move to a field nearby if we have to, or postpone to Saturday. But those are the two options I'm exercising. I'm not going going to Prescott Valley again. We've gone over there twice.
Are you telling me, and that's Bradshaw Mountains, your first game up?
Yes, it is.
Are you telling me that that's you literally the time frame could be we can't play Friday, but we can play Saturday?
Possibly.
It might be
it's that close.
That close?
Yeah. So the infill that they're going to put in the field, we went with it. We made a specific choice of infill, the little rubber granules.
Okay.
The company that's installing the field, which is AstroTurf, they started having some problems in Texas, California, and now even some of the Valley schools where they've installed that same infill. They found that out just a few days before they were going to put it into our field, and so we talked about it. We decided to go with a different infill, and so that's going to be shipped. It's being shipped right now from Georgia, where they produce it, and so it should get here Monday. As long as it gets here Monday and there's no other hiccups, we're good to play. We should have a soccer game on Thursday night on our field and then a football game on Friday night. If there's any delays, weather, broken down trucks, things like that, we may be looking at some kind of a delay.
So your first chance to play on that surface, to just have an experience with it, might be Bradshaw Mountain's first chance to play on that surface. You may get no warm up time, no opportunity to get used to it and see what it feels like any more than your opponent does.
As far as practices, but hey, that's how we've operated for how many years now. You know, we probably half of our games, I haven't gone back and counted up, but I bet more than half our games were played on turf fields last year.
Okay.
And so we're practicing on grass every week and then going and playing on turf. The stuff they're putting in now, you play with your regular cleats. You don't have to make any major changes to how you do things, and so it plays just like regular grass, even a little bit better. Everything's a little bit faster on turf.
Talking with the head coach, Kay Solomon of the Snowflake Lobos here on the Hatch Toyota Friday night football show. Coach, you mentioned your coaching staff a little bit a moment ago, and it's one of the things that makes this program go. I think it's really from top down. Administration has been so good at Snowflake. Your athletic director for the longest time now has been Kevin Standifer. And as a football coach that's now been there for a while in the program, that consistency of administration and having a guy like Kevin who pours his heart and soul into Lobo athletics and the culture that is built not just in the football program, but again, athletic department wide. I just love to see it. I love to see the participation. All the kids that are involved, both boys and girls, more athletes at Snowflake, I think, than probably any other 4A, 3A, 2A school on down. So can you talk a bit about that for a moment? And, I love what Kevin does. I love what the administration does. You're part of the administration, in your way, by the way, in addition to coaching, Coach.
Yeah. Kevin, we'll start with Kevin. He pours his heart and soul into his job as athletic director and does a terrific job with it, with all of our sports. Some schools you'll go to and you'll feel like certain sports will feel like they don't get the attention that they deserve from, their athletic department, let alone the fan base and the community and things like that. Kevin operates on an equal basis. He promotes every sport equally. He's just as proud of a state championship in boys soccer last year as he is a football championships 2 years ago. And they carry the same weight with him. And Kevin's done a terrific job, and he's been in that position for 20 plus years now as an athletic director there in Snowflake, and that's a hard job to have. He does it mostly himself. 2 years ago, he took on the junior high athletics on top of that when I vacated that position and moved over to where I am. And so he's running both the junior high and the high school athletic departments right now. And
I hope he's got some pretty good assistance with that. He's getting some help.
Other than us coaches kind of taking up some of the slack. No, he does it. Wow. He does most of it himself. Some great secretaries in the offices that help with registration and getting paperwork and sign-ups and things like that. But as far as tracking the other things, ordering equipment, things like that. Kevin does a phenomenal job. I could never do what he does.
Well,
he's ultra organized and does a terrific job.
He's also had some health challenges as well last couple of years. God bless him. Snowflake is very fortunate to have a guy like Kevin Standifer. I thought he was stretched then when I knew he was just the high school guy.
He was, but
to also take on the junior high, I don't know how he does it. He must have a different calendar and a different clock with more days and more hours than the rest of us have. So get that done.
You mentioned the culture, and that's the next step to take. Kevin's a big part of driving that culture. Like I said, he promotes every sport. He tries to get the best coaches in position for each sport, and get kids an opportunity to play and compete, but to have good experiences and to compete at the highest level. And so, my hat's off to Kevin. He's a great asset to our community and our schools, and does a great job. And when you talk about the culture of Snowflake sports, Kevin's right up there. One of the big reasons why that is what it is.
Coach, one of the reasons I believe that Snowflake has started to see the kind of requisite success in the football program that it has always deserved. Snowflake always had the best athletes in Northeast Arizona, in the White Mountains. Didn't always reflect it, but under your leadership, that's all changed. And a big part of what I think is different is the way now parents and fans interact with the programs. There was a time when I just felt like Snowflake parents, Snowflake fans were too closely involved, had too much input. And I believe there always has to be a healthy barrier, not a complete barrier, not a complete walled off situation, but a healthy barrier that exists between the coaches and the job they're doing and the fans and the way they input. You've got to give the coaches their room to do their job. And that to me is something that, again, part of the culture, wide in the athletic program at Snowflake that has just improved a lot over the last few years. And I think you're seeing the results of that in the various programs and the level of success they get. You see it most in football. And for you as a head coach, I would like to think that your job in that regard, dealing with the parents, has just gotten to be pretty good for you. Now, you're the only one that can answer that question, but from the outside looking in, it looks like that's not the kind of challenge that maybe it used to be in the past.
I can go back easily in my mind 10 years ago when Ron Tenney was leaving and when I took over the program, and in fact, the first year, you'll remember, we transitioned we had three of us that were kind of co-head coaches.
Yes, I do remember.
Coach Hargrove and Coach Standifer we were all part of that mix, and part of that was my own reluctance to take that part of the program on. The expectations are high, and rightly so. We have parents who invest a lot of time, a lot of effort, and want to see their kids succeed at the level that they can succeed at. And as we move forward, I think the biggest remedy to help in any program with that is to be able to develop that trust that parents need to know that you have their kids' best interest at heart. You want them to be successful as a football player. You want them to be successful as a student. You want them to grow up to be, they're gonna graduate and leave your program, and you want them to have the mindset that, hey, I'm equipped to move on with my life and take those next steps to go to college. Go serve a mission, go do whatever needs to be done, and I'm going to be successful at it because I've been successful at this hard thing that I'm doing with Snowflake football or whatever sport we're talking about. And so I do feel like it took a few years, but we built that trust within the community. I know we have it with our football program. And not to say that, you have hiccups along the road. I mean, like I said, a first-round exit last year, that's disappointing, especially for the parents of those seniors that had high expectations for those kids as they've watched them come up and grow up. But, again, we always start every season and every summer workout program telling kids, look, the greatest success we're going to achieve is not going to be to hoist a gold ball. Hopefully we get to do that. But the greatest success we're going to achieve this year is we're going to prepare you to be a better student, a better husband, father on down the road, a better person in life. If we don't get that out of you, or at least help instill that in you as part of our program, then we're not getting the job done that we want to.
Head coach Kay Solomon of the Snowflake Lobos here on the Hatch Toyota Friday Night Football Show. So I want to kind of launch from that to another question that's has something to do with that. Nobody wants to lose football games, all right? I'm not suggesting that you ever want to lose a football game. But I also have this caveat that I think you learn more from losing than you do from winning. Now, again, you want to win every football game you can. We were talking with Eric Halmerson, the Blue Ridge head coach, a while ago. He played through 39 of the Yellow Jackets' state record winning streak. The first 39 games, his sophomore, junior, and senior years. Didn't lose a football game. I'm sure he learned a lot of good lessons in that. But, you know, the adversity of losing, the adversity of coming back and trying to correct things and put in the additional work that it takes to stop losing football games, to me, those are lessons that are invaluable and that not just serve you well in the moment you're in with the football team you're on, but should serve you so well in the rest of life, because life is filled with its disappointments. Life is filled with its little losses along the way, and how you deal with all those things is going to be key. And this is kind of one of the things that high school sports, football in particular, can help you to develop and then take into your adulthood. So that being said, that idea, do you agree that you can learn more from losing than you can from winning? Not that you want to lose football games, but is there any wisdom in that at all?
You know, I'll always have the goal of coaching an undefeated season, but I haven't done it yet, and I don't know that I ever will. And to be honest with you, if it's a choice between that and taking that loss or two or three even along the way, but using those losses to learn some of those lessons that you're talking about. First of all, resiliency. You know, you got to be able to bounce back. You know, any team that throws in the towel after one loss, you know, they probably weren't headed in a very good direction to start with. But you go back, you break things down, you figure out, you know, what did we do wrong? You know, was it a preparation issue? Was it an adjustment in game issue? Do we have the right players in the right positions? Do we need to make some changes there? You know, all of those things to examine and try to work on to try to figure it out. Honestly, that's been a staple of our program in all of the successful years that we've had. We haven't gone undefeated. We've played some really good competition, but we've lost some games we shouldn't have lost, quite honestly. Sure. And so when we talk about this coaching staff that I work with, they're some of the very best at coming in. Saturdays we don't do anything team-wise, coach-wise. That's a family day. You know, we leave Saturdays alone during the season, but we'll get together Sunday night as coaches, and we never have a coach come in that hasn't spent significant hours watching film, breaking things down. They've already been talking. We've already been talking through text threads and things like that. Hey, I saw this. This is something we need to look at. This is something we need to think about. So by the time we actually sit down Sunday night to work out a plan and a strategy for the following week, we've already identified, you know, usually what needs to be done. And so we put together a plan to address it and move forward. And almost without fail, we turn things around pretty quickly that way.
Here's kind of a related question, and that is then when you're having success, let's say you play a very good football team during the regular season, you beat them, and then you see them in the playoffs again. They're very good, right? You've already played them once. You managed to outduel them the first time around. Now you get to see them again. Are you the coach that has that philosophy of you just don't fix what's not broken? Whatever you did to win the first time, we're going to do that again? Or will you make significant changes the second time you face a team that you've already beaten once?
I would always want to go into that second with some wrinkles up your sleeve, some things that they haven't seen yet that maybe you can do, you know, if that's within the capability of your team. Year to year, some years you have that, you know, you can throw a few extra things in. Some years you don't. You know, it just depends on your personnel, your injury situation, who's made it all the way through, and you know where you are with your players and things like that. But you know, playing a team twice, and as you were asking the question, I started, and I don't have the greatest memory. I can't tell you my record in 7 years ago, things like that. But I I don't know that I've ever been in that situation. I've usually been the one coming back around after a loss in the regular season, playing that same team in the playoffs. I can think of that situation.
And then you throw everything out,
I can
right?
actually think of one, and this goes back about 6 or 7 years ago. I think you were the head coach. It was, you had just beat Payson the week before, and then you came back and played them at home the next week in the first round.
We don't want to think about that.
I was the head coach, and that was the fastest turnaround.
And that was,
I can never remember.
Was that the 7-6 final?
It was a 7-6 final on a very sloppy football field in Snowflake.
Yes.
It had rained all week. That was a rough loss. And
sorry to bring back
the only other first round playoff loss. That's a hard one because that was Zach's senior year. My son. And
Payson Longhorn fans have entered the chat at this point,
and rightly so.
They remember those days with fondness. Now they haven't had a lot of those days since, but that was a feather in their cap for sure.
Hey, watch those guys though. Coach Burke has those guys doing some great things over there.
He is such a good coach. Kind of think about this. You're a Snowflake guy. You played at Snowflake, all right? Eric Halmerson, the Blue Ridge coach, played at Blue Ridge. Michael Boyce, the Sholo coach, played at Sholo. Coach Burke, Brian Burke, the coach at Payson, played at Payson. What's going on here? We're just bringing everybody back. And you know what? These are great coaches.
They are. They were, great, myself excluded. I won't call myself great. I was a decent player, but all of them were really, really key players in their football programs, but come back around. And I think there's something that's needed with that to be able to tie, because especially in this day and age of whatever you want to call it, social media, short attention span, whatever it is, there's just a lot of these kids that they're not tied into that legacy of these great programs of the past. And we're blessed to have more of that right now than most, because I've got seniors taking the field who were dressed out and on the field in that last state championship game that we played. So they can remember a little bit better, but it's good to have coaches that can tie in that past and that legacy of their these great strong programs up here to these kids that are playing in them today, because the kids don't remember those glory days. They a lot of them weren't even old enough to remember those games and those successes. They can see the trophies in the trophy case, but they don't know all of the work, and they don't even have older brothers and sisters that were part of those programs anymore.
Sure.
Hey, Coach, I want to, if I can, don't want to jump the gun too far, but talk about some players. I know you've got a quarterback battle going on. You brought back Carter Rabin, Canton Turley, some really great players on your offense. But as a lineman yourself, I'd like to hear about your line. I know that this line is going to be a special line, at least your offensive line. I don't know a lot about your defensive line yet, but your offensive line, you bring back a lot of talent from last year.
Yeah, and that's definitely a place to key. I mean, we've got two great running backs that you mentioned, Carter and Canton, coming back in the backfield, both of them 1,000-yard rushers last year, if I remember right, or at least right close to that. But we bring back on that offensive line, Cody Flake's been a starter for 2 years, going on his third year. Ethan Christensen's been a 2-year starter on that offensive line, and then Brock Bjorn comes back this year, and also Gunnar Richards, who both started on that offensive line. So 4 out of those 5 offensive linemen coming back this year, and that's huge, especially for a team like us who, we rely on that run game to set up a lot of what we do, especially with those type of running backs, and so. Those 4, and then we have a couple of others competing for some playing time. Ridge Perry at center, and then we might bounce a few of those other guys around just to complete that offensive line and make that group go. But they're going to be key. We have one of the shirts that Coach Rickertson, the offensive line coach, made a few years ago, says "Linemen lead the pack," and it's 100% true. If they, as our offensive line goes, that determines our success offensively, and so they have to take pride in that. It's a hard position group to be a part of, because you don't get the love, you get the hate when things don't go right. You get people pointing out that you missed this block or this isn't going right, but when things are going well, that offensive line is one that gets quickly overlooked. Not by me, because like you said,
you're a lineman.
I'm one of them, and that's where I coached for a lot of years. And I truly believe that if you want to gauge how good a football program is going to be, look right there at the offensive line and how do they treat that.
Well, the running backs get the glory, and we all know that. I go back to when I played, and we talked with Eric Helmerson earlier. Blue Ridge, historically, we were always so good, probably more than anything because up front, our line, as undersized as they were at times, as you just looked across the line sometimes and you thought, this is an offensive line that has led you to a state championship. And yet, time and time again, Bob London, Paul Morrow, they had the offensive line ready. And you talked about linemen lead the pack, and they just absolutely do. So we appreciate you giving those names. And now if I can, then move it to the skill position players. I want to hear about your quarterback battle because I know you haven't yet determined who your guy is.
Yeah, we go into a scrimmage tonight with Coconino, and we're still trying to nail it down. We have 3 that have battled through the summer, and we were determined to have this decided by the end of June, mid-July, somewhere in there. But we have Judd Flake, who's a senior this year, and Judd was involved in an accident with a firework 2 years ago. It's amazing he even gets to play football.
Yeah.
And honestly, to compete at the level he's competing at just blows my mind that he is where he is. But he's been right there, and then he's competing with 2 sophomores who are extremely gifted athletes, very, very football savvy. Mason Rabin is one of them, and then Jacob Leduc is the other. They're both sophomores. They both saw a lot of time between freshman and JV games last year, and to be honest with you, our freshman games in 4A are more like JV games because most programs are dropping all their sophomores to play freshman games now. So those 3 are taking pretty much equal reps right now. And after we see them in some live reps against Coconino this week, we'll go ahead and make a determination, and we'll go with that. But just like we talked about earlier, we've had tough decisions like this at quarterback before. It's good
problem to have. Maybe
we're happy that we've developed that depth. We know that we've done that along the way too. And then, if we make a decision and it turns out to be that we're feeling like it's not what we thought it would be, then we can always backtrack and go a different direction if we feel like we need to.
Head coach Kay Solomon, the Snowflake Lobos here on the Hatch Toyota Friday Night Football Show. A good look at the upcoming Lobos. You've got Bradshaw Mountain. What do we expect? Is Bradshaw going to be tough again?
Yeah, Coach Young still there at Bradshaw Mountain, and he's a run and gun, or not run and gun, ground and pound. He'll run the ball at you. Last year, we talk about losses that probably really shouldn't have been losses, and that's a game we look back at last year that we were poorly prepared, and from a coaching standpoint. But they ran the ball right over the top of us and had some pretty good athletes. But we've got some work to do to make sure that we're ready for them and their attack. They bring back some good athletes this year, and so it'll be a good test right out of the gate. One of our better games on our schedule. Bradshaw, depending on who you look at, preseason rankings, they're in most people's top 10 preseason ranking for 4A, and so very solid program. We're happy to get them over to Snowflake, or at least hopefully somewhere in the vicinity for our opener, because we've gone over there for 2 years in a row, played on their turf. We're going to get on our turf.
Let's hope you get your turf
make it happen. So
by August 30th, Friday, August 30th.
Good football team, and it'll be a good game.
Coach, before I let you go, and I do appreciate you spending the time. I know you got to get back to business, but you played in the pre-Friday Night Football Show era. We are inducting now annually. Starting last year, we inducted 9. We haven't inducted all of them, but we selected 9 of our very first entries ever into the Sports Zone's Friday Night Football Show Hall of Fame. And that, by the way, is presented by our partner, Perkins Cinders, so we thank them for the partnership on that. They've allowed us to produce these beautiful crystal trophies. I don't know if you've seen one, Coach, but they are gorgeous trophies. They are absolute wonderful keepsakes. A family heirloom, dare I say, to those who receive them. And we're excited to do it again this year with our partners, Perkins Cinders. So we'll give away some more. We'll induct some more this season into our Hall of Fame. But you played during the pre-Friday Night Football Show era. Who was the single best Snowflake Lobo football player you played with?
that I played with.
Yeah.
Oh man, going back through the years, if you narrow it down to because I played 3 years of varsity football, and I'd have to put Russell Peterson right there. Russell was a junior when I was a senior, but he was a starting running back junior or my junior and senior year. And
still
just,
the only guy ever to rush for 1,000 yards 3 consecutive seasons, right?
Incredible. Yep.
At Snowflake.
I'll take your word on it, but I don't doubt it a bit. And Russell is just a guy who, even today, you'll still see him around town, very quiet, very unassuming.
Yeah.
Doesn't want the spotlight, but incredible football player, a lot of heart. And Russell is a great example then. Continues to be a great example now of what we strive for with Lobo football.
Well, I had the privilege of playing against you guys, both you and Russell. And you guys were outstanding. And we couldn't quite manage to find a way to beat you guys when I played against you. But I'll say, yeah, Russell was unbelievable. The guy who I felt just struck the most fear into our hearts when we played against Snowflake, JT Ellsworth.
JT was a great athlete. In fact, JT, I think, still holds our record for the longest punt.
I'm sure he does.
Billed as a punter. Yeah. I think he rolled 199 yards down the field one time.
It helped the average. He had an average of 50-plus yards, didn't he? You guys probably only punted 3 times. But
well, not a lot, but yes.
The average was good.
JT was a very, very good athlete, too.
Yeah, and one other thing, just a thought on this from you, because if you go back and playing against Round Valley when Todd Workman was the head coach, they are naming the dome this season. They're going to name the dome after Todd Workman. It's going to be the Todd Workman Dome at Round Valley High School. How do you like that?
That's awesome, and a well-deserved honor. Coach Workman, he coached a little bit in Snowflake in the late 70s, but then obviously made a name for himself in several different places, and Round Valley was one of them. Incredible coached some of the toughest teams you'd ever play against, and we did. We share that championship with Round Valley from my senior year.
1985.
Do it with pride now, but we weren't so happy about it back in the day. There's still a few of those guys around from both of our groups, but great bunch of guys, and maybe Jeff Whiting will hear this. Jeff Whiting's the Rydell sales rep for Helmet, so we get to deal with him often. And Jeff was one of those guys in that group, same age as me, and just a great guy. But Coach Workman, he got the most out of his players, and
certainly
did it in a style unique to him, and
he was different.
I don't know if I can say I wished I'd have played for him, or I'm glad I didn't play for him, because I know he was tough as nails. But
if he wasn't around Valley in those at that time, and he was at Snowflake in 1985, I don't think it would have been a tie. Let me put it that way.
Might have been a different story.
I think it would have been a single state champion in 1985.
Probably true.
Head coach Kay Solomon of Snowflake. Coach, thanks for joining us. Do appreciate it. Good luck this season to you and your Lobos. Hopefully you get to play that home game against Bradshaw Mountain on your brand new surface. We'll see how that goes here coming up next week.
I just want to say, you guys will see it later on, but as I waited while Coach Halmerson was finishing up his interview, I snapped a picture and posted it up, and I want to give a shout out to Hatch Toyota too. They do a lot. They're one of our sponsors down there too. They just do so much for every program in this area, for you guys for covering us the way that you do, and everybody else that makes Friday nights what it is up here. It's incredible.
They are outstanding for sure. Yes. Thanks for the acknowledgement on that. Thanks to Derek Simmons as well for his production work here. Not just this, but everything that we do video with the Sports Zone. Another great season is in front of us. Thank you, Coach Kay Solomon. And the Snowflake Lobos are going to have another great year. You can count on it. It's going to be fun. We appreciate you joining us here for this. Look for all of our coverage coming up right here. The Hatch Toyota Friday Night Football Show, presented by Hatch Toyota and our great other sponsoring partners as well. Floyd Simmons, Derek Simmons, Coach Solomon. We'll see you guys right down the road here with more of the Friday Night Football Show.